السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أسعد الله مساءكم أجمعين. نشكر لكم اهتمامكم ونتشرف بمشاركتكم في ندوة المكتبة الخامسة بنسختها الخاصة تحت عنوان المكتبة كمحرك للتغيير في الوضع الطبيعي الجديد. الوضع الطبيعي الذي فرض نفسه منذ مطلع العام 2020 وأصبح واقعاً لابد من تقبله والتعامل معه. اليوم سنضع بين أيديكم نموذجين دوليين لنهجين مختلفين في عمل المكتبات في ظل هذه الجائحة. مكتبات رأت أن من الأسلم الاستمرار في الإغلاق فطورت خدماتها وخلقت فرصاً جديدة لإيصال المعرفة وتقديم البرامج والفعاليات عن بعد. ونموذج ثان لمكتبات قررت أن تفتح أبوابها ثانية بعد إغلاق قصير وعملت بصورة هجينة مع اتخاذ التدابير الصحية اللازمة. ونختم وختامها مسك بتجربة مؤسسة عبد الحميد شومان والنهج الذي اتخذته كيف أدارت هذه الأزمة وحولتها إلى فرص. وعليه سنبدأ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أود التنويه أنه جرى تعديل بسيط على ترتيب الجلسات نتيجة لظرف طارئ لدى السيد فليميرين، وبناء عليه ستبدأ المحاضرة معه في البداية. نرحب بمحاضرينا الكرام السيد فليميرين، السيد جون زابو، والسيدة فالنتينا قسيسية. نبدأ مع متحدثنا الأول السيد تون الذي سيخبرنا عن إعداد جدول أعمال ما بعد كوفيد وتجارب المكتبات الأوروبية مع كوفيد والدروس المستفادة. وفور انتهاء السيد تون سنطرح عليه الأسئلة لأنه سيضطر للمغادرة في الساعة الثانية من الندوة، لذا لا تترددوا بإرسال أسئلتكم ومداخلاتكم. السيد فليميرين هو مدير مكتبة أوتريكت العامة في هولندا. عمل كطبيب نفسي، مدرس، مستشار تربوي، ومدير التعليم العام. كان الرئيس السابق لجمعية مكتبات هولندا وعضو في لجنة التوجيه الحكومي لابتكار المكتبات. كان له عدة أدوار فاعلة في شبكة المكتبيين على المستوى الدولي، حيث كان مستشاراً في برنامج المكتبات العالمية التابع لمؤسسة بيل وميليندا غيتس، مؤسس المكتبات العامة لعام 2030، وعضو فاعل في جمعية المكتبات الدولية الإفلا، وهو الآن رئيس جمعية المكتبات والمعلومات الأوروبية. رحبوا معنا بالسيد تون. تفضل سيد تون.
Well, thank you. First of all, I like to share my screen with you, and I hope that works. I must say it's really a great honor and a great pleasure to be here tonight with you on this 5th Library Conference of the Abdulhamid Shoman Foundation. And of course, as I learned about the great cultural heritage and history of your country and of the hospitality of your people, I would have liked to be with you today, but well, during these circumstances, we of course all have to be online and meet in this way. So I like to speak with you about preparing a post-COVID agenda for libraries, and that is looking into the future. What is the theme of this conference? And first, I would like to ask the question, were libraries in Europe, were they in lockdown, were they closed? And you could also ask this question for libraries in other places in the world, in the Middle East or in Asia or Africa. And if we take a closer look at what happened in libraries, we saw that there was a lot of activity. Many libraries expanded their e-books on offer to their patrons and to the citizens in the community. And also they provided more access to digital collections. They offered health information on the COVID-19 pandemic and also had all kind of support to the community in different ways on this COVID pandemic. Many of our libraries saw staff that they didn't think were able producing video instruction and tutoring, for example, for kids on how to program robots, or having storytelling online, all kinds of activities engaged in. And also some libraries produced in a hybrid way, meaning they had some small audience on activities or storytelling or whatever they did. And at the same time, others could follow this at home online. And libraries learned to exchange and reuse digital products that were made by other libraries. So there was quite a digital boost during this lockdown. Also, we saw that libraries put a big effort in serving, for example, vulnerable people, elderly people, reaching out by phone calls to people of 70 years or more years old, to find out how these people were doing, and also offering them services of the library, like delivering books at home. And we also saw that in schools, kids who were at home had to log in and be online connected with the class and the teacher, but not all children had the opportunity to do this, because either the families didn't have the means to do this, or the parents didn't know how to support this. And libraries created spaces for kids in the library so they could be connected to digital schooling. And of course, libraries are of books, so there was a lot of home delivery. In the Netherlands, it means that librarians took their bicycles and cycled through the city to deliver books at home. And also in many libraries, there was the takeaway library that patrons could reserve halls and could pick them up at a designated time. So you could say that what happened during the pandemic was that libraries were open in more ways than ever, and that is good news. So what does this crisis tell us about the library profession? And we can see that there is a great passion among librarians to serve the community. And this passion didn't go away because of the pandemic, but it was channeled by great creativity and much flexibility to find new ways to deal with services and be there for the community. And also, it tells us that although librarians are sometimes described as being a kind of conservative, that librarians are innovative and learned a lot how to deal with this new digital reality. So, in my opinion, all librarians around the globe deserve a very big applause for the efforts they made and how they served the community. There are also some aspects that might be a bit more difficult. Some librarians are reluctant to address visitors when it comes to the rules of conduct in the library. And of course, with this pandemic where you have one-way circulation and you have to wear a mouth mask, etc., there is more stress on these rules. And that's sometimes difficult for library staff. So there have been training to support staff in doing this. And also we noticed that some staff members found it very difficult when the library reopened to be among the visitors again, because normally a patron, a visitor of the library is someone you want to be close with, you want to share your knowledge, you want to give advice, and now you had to distance from that person who might be a risk for your health. So some staff really ran into psychological problems, and well, libraries offered counseling, professional counseling to deal with this stress. But the main message is, it's good news what happened in the libraries during this crisis. If we reflect on what libraries normally do during crisis, we see that libraries often act as a community center where people can get together, where they find information, help, and empathy, and they can tell their stories. And examples are, for example, the libraries in Nepal after the earthquake, and the libraries in New Zealand after the 2010 earthquakes, and other examples of disaster are there. But during the COVID-19 pandemic, the libraries were often physically closed. People couldn't get there and couldn't get together. And that's a bit of a contradiction, because there were so many themes that should have been addressed by libraries in debates or in providing information during this crisis. For example, the pandemic raises questions about health and healthcare and ethics. For example, how good is our healthcare system? Who has the right to be the first one to be helped? If there is too much patients, how do you decide who's going to get treatment and who's not going to get it? There are questions about the role of government. In the Western part of the world, there are many neoliberal governments who said less government is better. And now these governments have to take a role and move into the lives of people and into the privacy of people. So what kind of governments do we want to have? Then there is the question of solidarity and freedom. Some people stress that they say, I have my freedom and I can do what I want, even if it means being a risk for vulnerable people. So what kind of society do we want to be? And how do we want to live and how do we want to work? Changes have been developed by working much at home. And in the end, we know where this virus came from. We have to reflect on how we produce our food, how we consume, etc. So there's a lot of questions that could have been easily debated or subject of the information role of libraries in the community. And the interesting thing is that many of these questions that are raised by the COVID pandemic are directly connected to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. If we look at what happened in countries, we saw that there are many different rules in different countries, and that didn't help for libraries to learn from one another. For example, in some countries, books had to be in quarantine for 72 hours. In other libraries and countries, not at all. We also saw that libraries were in, for example, Germany already reopening, when in the United Kingdom they were closing. So there were different stages which sometimes helped to learn from one another and sometimes not. Government reactions were different. I think the inspiring example is of the New Zealand government, who provided 80 million New Zealand dollar for the libraries to organize the discussions on the themes I just mentioned, and also to invest in efforts of library to help people who lost their jobs back at work. Other governments, like in Italy, provided 30 million to the local bookshops that libraries could get more books and promote reading during lockdown. And in Latvia, for example, the government paid for the e-book offer that was extended there, and the costs were taken by the national government. Library associations have played an important role by, for example, in the Netherlands, the Dutch Library Association provided almost 50 regular newsletters on topics connected to COVID-19, and negotiated with the government and the health authorities on what libraries could do, and came with, the regulations so libraries could apply these things. Organizations like Eblida, which is a hub for the European libraries, created reports and surveys to share what the state of the art in libraries was, what measures some libraries had taken, what solutions there were. And this all happened in countries where we saw that many citizens followed the governmental instructions, but also we saw citizens turning away from democracy, from science and government and solidarity. And there was a lot of fake news and conspiracy theories where libraries could have had a big role and still can have, I think. So if we look at the future, questions are what will determine our future? And one question is this social distancing and finding new ways to connect, will it stay with us or not? And will it shape, for example, the layout of library buildings, the width of the corridors we have and the spaces we have in the library? And will it also change our interactions? Second, technology has moved in. There's a lot of digital services now in libraries, and you could expect that this will continue and that at least we will have more digital services in the future. Having said that, we are at the same time in a situation where the economy is a big question mark. The governments who can put in additional budget to keep the economy moving, but someday this has to be paid for, and many libraries fear that in the years to come there will be budget cuts for libraries because of the economical effects of the crisis. And then there is the way that libraries are perceived by government at central and local level. There has been in many countries a reappreciation of the value of libraries and the services that have been provided by libraries. We see that exceptions are made, that when many services are closed during lockdown, there are now exceptions for libraries. So we could say that there might be a reappreciation. So that's all question marks for the future. We don't know exactly what is going to stay, but we might think that the creation of digital libraries, not having only physical neighborhood libraries, but a digital library that services your citizens 24/7 with more ebooks and more digital content, that is something we expect that there will be. Also, digitized services and hybrid services, like for example, having a talk show, not only on the spot, but also streaming. We think this will be there in the future. More extensive use of social media, for example, for tutoring and instruction movies on YouTube and other social media channels will be something that might stay. And of course, doing this together, we are libraries, we are in the habit of exchanging, so we think this will continue. What is for the profession something is that working from home, not all the time, but more than we did before, will be the new normal, and also that the boost that has been given to the digital skills of librarians will be something to stay. And then there is, like we do now today, is these online meetings and online conferences. We want travel probably not as much as we did before to be in person meetings, but also, combine this with video meetings. And I already mentioned we have to reflect on, if we expect that something like this might happen again, what would it mean for the layout, for example, of buildings? There's also a big opportunity for libraries, because what we saw during this crisis is a growing awareness among citizens that the poor, being the most affected groups in the community, often being the immigrants and kids living in less favored neighborhoods in the cities. And also we learned that if you are not digitally skilled, you cannot connect to the services that are available only online, and this creates inequality. If you are a school kid who cannot attend digital school classes, you will be lagging behind in your school career. It also shows us how important it is to create an inclusive society where people are together working on living in a proper way and, well, getting this pandemic out of our communities. And this means that you have to create opportunities for all. And if you take a closer look at these things, it's the business of libraries. It's in our mission statement that we want to create access and learning opportunities for all, that we want to provide information for all, that people can develop skills in the library, and in this way we support our community in being an inclusive community. So I think this is something that has grown during the crisis we can build upon. I am president of EBLIDA, the European Bureau for Libraries and Information Associations, and we have been working on, you could say, a library agenda for the post-COVID age, and it says it's a European library agenda, but I'm sharing this with you because I think it can be inspiring for other libraries around the globe as well. And what we did was we looked for good examples of libraries who did projects, who made choices, who worked on different services that touch the subjects I just mentioned. And we connected these with the global, the Sustainable Development Goals. So libraries could see if we are doing this, we are working on that kind of sustainable development goals. And also we connected this into an inventory of the European structural investment funds. Now, these are only available in Europe, I'm aware of that. And we, of course, hope that many European libraries will apply for this type of funding, but when it comes to digital citizenship or organizing debates in your community, there's a lot to be learned in this. And it's work in progress. The pandemic is not over yet, but I think there is a lot of reason to be proud to be working in a library, and also to be optimistic about how we can adapt our services, not only the promotion of reading and storytelling and the things that are more classical in the library, but also all the challenges we have faced during this pandemic, that libraries can deal with that in a very positive way. So thank you for your attention. Thank you for the opportunity for me to share this with you, and I'm open for questions.
شكرا جزيلا سيد تون، ونفتح المجال للأسئلة. السؤال الأول من ثائر: بما أنكم تقدمون خدمات مجتمعية واسعة النطاق، أنت كمسؤول وفي موقع إداري، بناء على ماذا تقرر أن هذا النشاط أو الخدمة ممكن إقامته في المكتبة أو لا؟ كيف توافق أو ترفض؟
Okay. Well, first there is the demand. So we saw that many of our patrons, of course, wanted to be able to read during lockdown. So we are having a close look on what the people in the community expect from us. And that is, for example, the opportunity to pick up books even if the library is closed. Another demand was the kids I already mentioned who couldn't connect to digital schooling. That is one thing. The second is, can we organize this in a safe way? Because there is the health regulations of the government that has to protect our staff and our staff members, and also protect the people coming to the library, or if we deliver at home, can we do this in a safe way? That's another thing. And there is also a level to not only think about the healthcare aspects of services, but also about the psychological aspects of services. We found out that, for example, some of our staff living alone without a family and had to work from home for 10 weeks, they got depressed, and we could involve them in services, so they again had the feeling to be of value for citizens, to deliver services and to be among the people again. Now, these are aspects that we of course had to weigh all in different ways. And then there is an economic aspect, because well, you have to pay for the services you provide. Did we have the money to do it? And I think these were the most important, where, of course, safety for visitors and staff, health-wise, is the most important.
سؤال من هنا حريري. ما المقصود بالخدمات الهجينة؟
Okay. Well, we had a lot of things like, for example, storytelling, or a debate in the library, or a lecture. And what we used to do was, sell tickets if there were limited spaces, or invite people to come and find a place in our theater or in our neighborhood libraries. Now, due to the regulations, we can only have, for example, 30 people in our theater, which hosts more than 200. So we can't have as many people in the building as we normally would have. And that made that we decided that we do these storytelling or these performances or lectures for a small audience, like 30 people, that we are allowed to have in the building. But at the same time, we broadcast it with a local broadcast company, or we stream it online. So there are two ways to attend, and that is what I'd use the word hybrid for.
Okay. إجانا سؤال من ياسمين تسأل: هل يتم عقد خلية أزمة أو جلسات عصف ذهني عند وجود أزمة أو تحدي في قطاع المكتبات كما حصل عند بداية الجائحة؟ هل تكون على مستوى المكتبة الواحدة أو الدولة أو أوروبا كلها؟
Well, I said something about different rules in different countries, and Europe is a continent that is trying to work together, but during this pandemic, it showed again that all countries had their own rules and their own decisions in their own process. So, of course, governments try to learn from one another, but it's not at the European level. For us, the national level, and the Netherlands is a small country, the national level is the most important. So our Prime Minister had weekly press conferences where he announced what measures were taken and what we were allowed to do or not. And for example, closing the libraries or closing the cafes or closing the schools, that's all national decisions. So that is on the national level. There's, of course, with the health authorities and others, there's a task force. In the library, we had a team with our communications officers, because we have to inform our patrons when we are open, when we are closed, what kind of services we deliver, to address the attention of our patrons that if they cannot borrow physical books, they could find ebooks on our website, etc. So the communication is very important. Then we have, of course, our staff of the neighborhood libraries and central library dealing with services and questions on how can we make the building safe? Do we use the entrance for coming in and the back door for getting out of the building so people can circulate in a safe way? They are for these kind of questions. And I was, of course, involved in the decision-making process. So we had a team of different staff members coming together, especially after the press conferences of our Prime Minister, because he would say things like, tomorrow evening at 10 o'clock, libraries will be open or closed, and then we had to deal with that. So we needed this task force.
سؤال باللغة الإنجليزية من ضحى خصاونة. So you talked about all input. What you did for output? How you be sure that all input accessible and have effective power for people? How do you measure the output? To follow up? Thank you.
I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly, but I understand it's how do you measure the output and not only the input? I must confess that there are areas we don't know exactly what the output was. There's often an evaluation. For example, we reached out to the citizens of 70 years and older and asked them if they needed our services, and many wanted our services, and we delivered books at home. That is an indication of this was a valuable service. But there was also a value, you could say, in that these people being at home alone often value just to have a chat with someone, with a person, in this case with a librarian. And I find it hard to state what the value of that is, but I think in a society this can be of importance. We also saw that, for example, when it was announced that libraries would be closed again, that our patrons came and borrowed 250% more books than they did on the same day a year ago. So people value the possibility to read books. And of course, like we are now in an online session where you could see that we are with 130 people, or we register how many people do attend digital services, for example. So we try to track it, but I must say it's also a time to improvise and try out new services that not everything is registered to create, to be sure what the impact is.
الأسئلة كثيرة صراحة، رح اختار مجموعة. معتصم باللغة الإنجليزية سؤاله أيضا: Do you think VR headset could be used in libraries and how?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I'm sorry, was that a question for me? I didn't get it. Can you repeat it, please?
What are the best sorry, the same question. Do you think VR, virtual reality headsets, could be used in libraries, and how?
Well, we see many libraries using virtual reality, but I think, well, I don't see this as a special feature in this crisis. I think libraries have a role when it comes to artificial intelligence and all kind of other technical developments to inform citizens and show them how it works and what it could mean. And for educational purposes, it can be used. But I'm not aware that during this pandemic, there has been special use of this in libraries.
سؤال من إبراهيم عودة من جمعية الحياة البرية في فلسطين. يسأل: هل من الحكمة إذا أعادت الأمور كالسابق وانتهى فيروس كورونا أن نستمر في تطوير أساليب جديدة للتواصل عن بعد لاحتمال أي أزمات مستقبلية أن نكون جاهزين، وحتى التواصل عن بعد قد يفيد للوصول الأفراد الذين لا يستطيعون الوصول في الأحوال العادية؟
Sorry, I only got Arabic, so I didn't understand the question.
أعيد السؤال. هل من الحكمة لو عادت الأمور إلى السابق وانتهى فيروس كورونا أن نستمر في تطوير أساليب جديدة للتواصل عن بعد؟
Yeah, well, the question of how libraries can show the outcome and impact they have on society is a question that's there for quite some years. And many libraries struggle with showing what they deliver in society, because what we do is valuable work, but it's difficult to demonstrate this in a statistical or other way. So Oh, sorry. Yes, I think we have found that this is a situation where we have new ways of communicating that add to the possibilities we have as a library, and I think we should continue that for the future. Yes, sorry.
سؤال من علي بيقول: أنت ذكرت أن جائحة كورونا بيّنت لكم بشكل واضح كيف أن هناك تفاوت كبير في الفرص وقلة العدالة المجتمعية وأهمية المجتمع الشامل. كمكتبات، كيف ممكن المساهمة في سد هذا الخلل ومساعدة الأشخاص الأقل حظاً؟
Yes. I think that, well, we are libraries, so our business is information and information skills, and also providing learning opportunities to people. That's the business we are in, and I think in this role of libraries we can contribute to bridge that gap. And for example, in our country, in the Netherlands, there is now much attention, much more than there was, for digital citizenship, meaning that all people should be able to acquire the skills and the competencies to well, be online connected, participate in society, and deal with the questions that are facing them in the pandemic when they can't be in person in services. So I would say this is what we can do. It's connected to what libraries already do, what our business is, and we have to intensify that efforts and focus it on the groups that needed it most.
سؤالنا الأخير، في أسئلة كثيرة بس من الوقت. هل يتم تدريب المكتبيين ليكونوا قادرين على تقديم النصح والاستشارة للأشخاص في مجالات غير علم المكتبات؟ مثل ماذا؟ تدريبات مثل ماذا؟
Well, I mentioned that they are trained on how to deal with the COVID crisis and with the new rules in the library. That is one aspect. They are sharing the information that is on the crisis so that if people want to inform them about pandemics or viruses or vaccines, they are able to provide this information to the patrons. And we have, for example, a series of debates under the title of the new normal, where people can get together and where there are experts. So this is what we do. I must say that the one person to one librarian advising role, or one librarian to one person advising role on saying this information is specific for you is not so frequent.
شكرا جزيلا سيد تون على هذه المشاركة وهذه التجربة الغزيرة. والآن سنكون مع السيد جون زابو، والجلسة بعنوان الإبداع والتكيف والخدمات في مكتبة لوس أنجلوس لمواجهة تحديات جائحة كورونا. السيد جون زابو هو مكتبي المدينة في مكتبة لوس أنجلوس العامة، التي تقدم خدماتها لأكثر من 4 مليون شخص، وهو أكبر مجتمع اللي في المكتبة في جميع الولايات المتحدة. يشرف على المكتبة العامة الرئيسية و72 فرع بموازنة تقرب 205 مليون دولار. في عهده حصلت المكتبة عام 2015 على جائزة الشرف العليا عن خدمات المكتبة. جون زابو يمتلك خبرة تزيد على 25 عام في المكتبات العامة. يحمل شهادة الماجستير في المكتبات والمعلومات من جامعة ميشيغان، وهو الآن رئيس مجلس أمناء OCLC وعضو في مجلس مدراء إنسانيات كاليفورنيا وجامعة مركز جنوب كاليفورنيا للقيادة والإدارة. أهلا فيك سيد جون، تفضل.
Good evening, everyone. Well, good evening again, everyone, and good morning from the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California. It is wonderful to be with you. A very, very special thank you to our hosts today, the Abdul Hamid Showman Foundation, for bringing us together for this conversation about the value of libraries and their relevance and their importance during this really incredibly challenging moment for all of us. I wish we could be together in person. Even virtually, though, it is very good to be together with library professionals and people who care about libraries and understand their importance. The title of my presentation today uses the words creativity, adaptability, and service. And these are words that I think describe the work of people in libraries across the globe during these times, and definitely describes the work of the excellent staff at the Los Angeles Public Library. You could also add another word to this, and that is resiliency. We have dealt with many challenges, and it requires perseverance and dedication and being flexible to be able to change with the environment. And it is remarkable how library staff at our library and other libraries have really stepped up in new and impressive ways to serve everyone in our communities and to be creative in doing that. Today, I want to speak about some of the ways that we are serving our community in Los Angeles through our libraries during COVID-19. And I also want to highlight some other services that we're offering on a limited basis or actually not offering at all right now, but that we're developing strategies and we're thinking about how we might provide those services going forward. And I think all of this paints a picture of a very dynamic and innovative institution that is really doing outstanding work. And I think it's important at the beginning to point out that this is not only describing big libraries like the Los Angeles Public Library. I think some of the most amazing work in libraries is happening in very, very small, even poor libraries serving very, very small communities. There is, I think we all know this, but a certain magic or special quality about libraries and the people who work in them, their passion and their dedication. And I know you're proud of that, and I'm very proud of that as well. As I begin, I want to just give you a sense of the Los Angeles Public Library. We are the public library serving the city of Los Angeles. We are part of city government here. We serve a very large geography, 503 square miles, 4 million plus residents in our city. But we also serve all of the residents of the state of California. All of the residents of our state can use our libraries. We have 73 library locations, including our central library, and we have over 1,600 library staff. And we are open during normal times, 6 days a week at all of our locations, and some are open 7 days a week. And the map shows the map of our city and how we divide our branch libraries into different 6 regions, actually. These are some of the services that we're providing during COVID-19. In mid-March, we closed all 73 of our libraries, and they have remained closed to this day. We do provide some limited services to provide access to collections right now, and I'll speak about that in a moment. But some of the services that we provide while we've been closed: virtual story times, author talks, community programs, Ask the Librarian services, where people can get tutorials on how to use library collections and services, a virtual tour of our beautiful central library, because people cannot come here and explore the art and architecture of this building, which hundreds do every week. We have this virtual tour. Also a Safer at Home archive that I'll speak about in a moment, an opportunity to get a high school diploma, online tutoring, learning another language, and also disaster service workers, and I'll speak about that in a moment. At the very beginning of the pandemic, our librarians began providing virtual programs, and here we have one of our librarians serving youth, providing virtual story time. The wonderful quality about these story times is that across our 73 libraries, we of course provided in-person story times and services for individual neighborhoods. And in the pandemic, each of these librarians who are normally just serving their small neighborhood are now serving the entire city of Los Angeles. So there is much more programming to take advantage of throughout the city. And for some of our programs in other languages and with broad interest, we actually find that there are people from across the United States and across the world who are joining our programming. And we find that to be wonderful and very, very positive. This is an image that I remember from the earliest days of the pandemic in March. It was one of the first photos of one of our services. And this is one of our children's librarians reading a story to stuffed animals. And she was demonstrating the importance of keeping distance, social distancing with the stuffed animals. And it's a sad image in many ways, but also a wonderful image as well. Later in the pandemic, over the summer here, we began providing library to go services. And this is a service where people can come and access our physical collections by picking them up at the door of the library. Patrons do not come into the facility, but they do come to a table just outside. And here we're launching it with the mayor of Los Angeles and really promoting library services. We now offer this service at 26 of our libraries. So not all of our libraries have this available. And the reason is that some of our staff are providing services outside of the library and others are unable to provide services in our facilities because of health or they are in vulnerable populations. So we have materials coming from all 73 of our libraries being channeled through just 26. So the 26 libraries providing this service are extremely busy. We also are providing Explore Art at Home kits. And this is a partnership with a local museum. And these are boxes that children and families can take home. They do not need to return these kits to the library. And they allow them to explore art and create art at home. And it's a way to promote the library and to promote the museum, which is the Broad Museum here in downtown Los Angeles. Realizing that it was important to capture this moment in our world and in our city, we decided to create an archive. And we asked the people of our community to contribute photographs, stories, poems, their own original artwork, and other expressions of life during the pandemic to this archive so that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, into the future, we would be able to have this archive that captures and tells the story of this moment in our city. And many of these images are very positive and are celebrations of life. And some of them, of course, are sad as well. This is one of the images that was contributed, this image on the right. And here are other images of a bench, a public bench that was not able to be used. And on the right, an image of healthcare workers being honored. And we've had over 1,000 submissions from our community to this archive. We also, in our makerspace, with our 3D printing equipment, have created face shields for local hospitals and workers there. And we've created thousands of them in this lab. And it is a wonderful way that a space and staff in our libraries that cannot be used now because our facilities are closed, that we can contribute and do something that is good. We also have a fleet of vehicles that we call our street fleet. And they are brightly colored vehicles that are intended to bring the library into the community. And during the pandemic, they have been repurposed to deliver books that do not need to be returned, that are gifts from the library to the community. And these books are being delivered to the most vulnerable populations of the city, those who are without homes and are in shelters, and older residents of our city who are unable to access our collections through our library to go services. And our staff have been delivering these materials and providing these services during the pandemic. We also, through this fleet of vehicles, have delivered materials for our summer reading, which in the United States, schools are closed during the summer, and we promote reading among children with this outreach. And so our staff are providing that here. Career Online High School, this is an opportunity for adults who did not get their high school diploma when they were young to be able to earn that diploma. And we still provide this service. It is entirely online, and several hundred adults have received their diploma through the library and our services. Unfortunately, we are not able to have a graduation ceremony like this. The photos that you see are from our central library, where we bring these graduates together and we celebrate their accomplishment. We cannot do that now, but we look forward to it when we're able to reopen. But adults continue to earn this diploma. And this is an example of the library continuing to serve residents of our city, and doing so through formal education and their ability to earn a degree. We have beautiful gallery spaces for art and exhibits in our central library and some of our branch libraries. We are not able to have those spaces open, of course, now, but we have made some of the exhibits virtual. So this is an audio experience as well as a visual experience online. This exhibit and a book that we published for the exhibit is about a puppet theater and a puppet troupe in the 1950s here in Los Angeles. And it has been very popular online and virtually so that people can experience it. And of course, we look forward to reopening when they can experience it in person. Another very, very important service that the library staff are providing right now is as disaster service workers. And this is because all of our library staff are city employees, and during a disaster, and this is typically envisioned if an earthquake or a natural disaster were to occur, city staff can be required to do work outside of their normal duties. And so library staff have been asked to serve in this capacity as a disaster service worker to help at COVID testing sites, to help in shelters for those without homes, and also to do contact tracing for the health department. And here you see 2 staff members who are participating in that role. Over 500 library staff have served as disaster service workers. And so this is not traditional library work, but it is an important way that the library staff have stood up and served Los Angeles, and we're very proud of it. Our New Americans initiative is something that we are providing on a limited basis online right now. This is a program where we welcome immigrants in Los Angeles to take the first step on the path to citizenship in the United States, to integrate into our community, to learn English, to understand what benefits they can receive from our city and our local community. And this is a wonderful service that the library provides, and it sends a message to our residents that the library is for everyone. And the woman on the left is participating in a citizenship ceremony, and the gentleman on the right speaking was from Mexico and became a United States citizen through the Los Angeles Public Library. We also provide many health services through the library. We do not pay for these services, but we partner with other organizations to do that. We provide flu vaccines, flu shots. We provide examination for eyes, free glasses for children, which allows them to access library services. We provide dental exams for poor children, HIV testing, and also blood pressure screenings. And these are important services because we provide them along with information, but also families that come to the library for these services are also going to learn about all of the other wonderful programs that we have, that we offer story time in Spanish or other languages, that we offer exhibits and other wonderful services. During the summer, when children are not in school, we, at some of our libraries, provide free summer lunches. And again, families come for the free lunch, the meal, but they also learn about and other services, but also participate in story time, craft programs, and other activities for children. We, of course, have many services for the youngest in our community, infants and children, and we are not able to provide these now, but are exploring opportunities to do this in a safe way outdoors and possibly in the next phase of reopening. We have many people who are not housed, who do not have homes in Los Angeles. And this is a service that we provide for them, where we bring together 12 to 15 partner organizations so that those without homes in the library can learn about services for them. The photo on the right is a service where free haircuts are provided to those who are without homes at the library. Full Steam Ahead is, and STEAM is an acronym actually that stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And this is providing programs for children in these subjects in our libraries. We are not able to do that now, but in our libraries, but we do provide these programs about robotics, about computer coding, mathematics, virtually. And the programs are incredibly popular. We also, in our central library, each year have a maker fair, a huge festival around these science and technology topics. We are providing these services and these programs virtually, but again, not in person right now. This is our maker space in our central library. This is our mayor on the left of Los Angeles holding a library card. We are providing face shields now from this space and also providing some instruction, but again, the maker space is not open now. Ton mentioned delivering books on bikes. These are our book bikes. They deliver books into various communities. They provide outreach, and they also are a very effective marketing tool to promote the library. These go to festivals, they go to schools, and they go to places where older residents live. We also promote our library card, our physical library card, by asking notable artists to create new designs for our library card. And we produce them in limited quantity, so they are desirable and popular. And here, this is an artist named Gajin Fujita, a Japanese American artist who was inspired as a child by one of our librarians and has become a well-known artist. And we then asked him to do this card, which has been very, very popular. Here are two of the artists and two of the cards, Gajin and Shepherd Ferry, who have produced limited edition cards for us. We also, because we're Los Angeles and have celebrities here, we ask actors and celebrities to help us promote library cards. The gentleman on the left is Keanu Reeves. The person in the middle at our central library is Emilio Estevez, an actor, and other actors you see on the screen. And then, of course, Clifford the Big Red Dog, which is very popular with children. Read Baby Read, we do have these kits and we are distributing them, but not in the same way that we would when we are fully open. Reaching the youngest in our community, infants, babies, is very, very important. Establishing a relationship between the library and families with babies is critical to develop a lifelong love of reading. And this is a program that we are strategizing about how to connect with families during COVID. We also each year now have a huge festival for Spanish language books and Spanish language authors and storytelling. And we had that program this year, which was not in person, was just virtual. And we had over 15,000 participants, not only from Los Angeles, which has a large Spanish-speaking population, but people participated from all over the world. And it was a big success. We also have the Student Success Card, which has been particularly important during the pandemic. This is a special library card that is automatically provided to students across Los Angeles. We do not wait for them to ask for a card, but we automatically give them one. And when the pandemic began, knowing that every child in the city had a card and could access all of our online ebooks and services was so important. And so our student success cards have been essential. This is a critical service during the pandemic. It is TESSA, and it is the digital portal for our library special collections. We have many photographs, travel posters, movie posters, because we're Hollywood here, and other very special collections that can be searched digitally through this portal. And use of this service has increased in this past several months. And then in conclusion, this is a photograph of a couple of years ago of most of our staff. I don't think all of them are here. We have a very large staff. And I include this photo because it's important to recognize them and to thank them for their service. And then in conclusion, this is who we do all of this for. This is a young resident of our city, and she is sitting in one of our book bikes. And this is a book bike that opens up and provides these free books that we offer to residents of the city. And then you see the different social media that the library is available on. And with that, I look forward to your questions.
شكرا جزيلا سيد جون. مكتبتكم فعلا داعمة وتقدم كل شيء للمجتمع. استعرضنا استعرضنا التجربة الأوروبية والتجربة الأمريكية، والآن مع التجربة المحلية تحدثنا عنها رئيستنا التنفيذية السيدة فالنتينا القسيسية، والجلسة بعنوان كوفيد-19 دعوة للمرونة والفوضى الخلاقة. السيدة فالنتينا هي ناشطة اجتماعية أردنية تهتم بتمكين المجتمع والاندماج الثقافي. تشغل حالياً منصب الرئيسة التنفيذية لمؤسسة عبد الحميد شومان، وهي منظمة غير ربحية مكرسة للاستثمار في الابتكار الثقافي والعلمي والاجتماعي، وتضم تحت مظلتها أكبر مكتبة عامة في الأردن. منذ انضمامها إلى مؤسسة عبد الحميد شومان في العام 2013 عملت قسيسية على تغيير استراتيجية المؤسسة، واشتغلت على توسيع نطاق دور المؤسسة ليكون لها تأثير أفضل على المشهد الثقافي في الأردن، حيث قامت بإشراك الشباب واليافعين والأطفال في جميع أنشطتها، إضافة إلى إنشاء صندوق المنح بهدف دعم الشباب المبدعين والطموحين في مجالات الابتكار الثقافي والعلمي والاجتماعي. تفضلي فالنتينا.
شكرا جزيلا أفنان، وبحب أشكر توم وجون على مشاركتهم معنا بهذا المؤتمر اللي بنقيمه سنويا على المكتبات، وبنعتبر انه هذا المؤتمر بالنسبة لنا كتير مهم لأنه بيعرفنا على تجارب عالمية مهمة. مؤسسة عبد الحميد شومان هي مؤسسة غير ربحية، ولكن أسسها البنك العربي، فهي مدعومة من القطاع الخاص، وهي هاي تمثل تجربة مختلفة عن باقي التجارب المكتبات اللي هي بتكون مدعومة من البلديات أو من الدولة. اليوم يعني البرزنتيشن اللي عندي رح تكون عن جائحة كورونا أو كوفيد-19 ودعوة للمرونة والفوضى الخلاقة اللي مهم كتير إنه إحنا نكون جاهزين فيها بإدارة المكتبات. احنا كمؤسسة هي مؤسسة تم إنشائها عام 1978 زي ما حكيت من قبل البنك العربي، وفيها برامج ثقافية بالإضافة لبرامج المكتبات، طبعا مكتباتنا، وفيها برامج خاصة بدعم مشاريع أخرى. المكتبة تأسست عام 1986 تقريبا تقوم بخدمة أكثر من 340 ألف مستفيد سنوياً، وفيها أنشطة مختلفة، وتم إنشاء فرع جديد لنا عام 2018. على اليمين اللي هي المكتبة الرئيسية، وعلى الشمال هي المكتبة الفرعية، وتم إنشائها في منطقة من المناطق غير المخدومة اللي هي منطقة الأشرفية. وعندنا مكتبة أطفال اسمها مكتبة درب المعرفة للأطفال واليافعين، تم إنشائها عام 2013 وبتخدم ما يزيد عن 40 ألف طفل وناشئ سنوياً، وفيها طبعاً برامج وأنشطة يومية وخدمات متنوعة. ب 17 أذار عام 2020 صدر القرار إنه يصير في عنا حظر تجول، وكلنا اضطرينا انه نروح على البيت وما نطلع من البيت. كانت بهذا الوقت مؤسسة عبد الحميد شومان كانت مستعدة لهذا الحظر، لأنه كنا نسمع عن دول عم بيصير فيها حظر، فتوقعنا إنه إحنا يصير عنا نفس الحظر، فجهزنا حالنا إنه إحنا كيف بنقدر إنه نشتغل من البيت. كان الحظر لأسبوعين، ولكنه زاد لمدة 3 أشهر. خلال ما إحنا كنا بالحظر حولنا كتير، يعني أنشأنا منصة للكتب المسموعة. حاولنا إنه إحنا بدنا نوصل للجميع، حتى لو إنه إحنا مش موجودين يعني بالمكتبة، ولكن إنه إحنا موجودين لخدمة كافة الناس أينما كانوا. فأنشأنا زي ما حكيت منصة الكتب المسموعة والإلكترونية، منحنا اشتراكات مجانية على أحد المنصات الكتب الإلكترونية اللي اسمها أبجد، واللي هي مدعومة من مؤسسة عبد الحميد شومان. صرنا نمدد إعارة الكتب إلكترونيا، أعطينا اشتراكات مؤقتة للناس اللي بدهم يشتركوا من جديد حتى يقدروا أنهم يوصلوا لقواعد بيانات أو للمكتبة الإلكترونية. الطلاب والباحثين اللي كانوا محتاجين أنهم يحصلوا على مقالات أو دراسات أو بحوث وفرنا لهم إياها. قمنا بعمل قراءات قصصية عن طريق الإنترنت يعني أونلاين، وكانت يعني بأقل الموارد الموجودة عند كل شخص في بيته، بس كانت بتأدي الغرض. وفريقنا كان من بيته كمان عم بيأدي الخدمات اللي مطلوبة لكل المستفيدين من يعني إعارة كتب، من تمديد اشتراكات، من أي أسئلة بيحتاجها المستفيد. وكمان كنا أونلاين عمالنا منجاوب على الناس عن طريق يعني منصات التواصل الاجتماعي. كنا كل الأيام موجودين وكل الساعات موجودين. بس عمالي بحكي عن منصة الكتب الإلكترونية، يعني هي كانت أول إشي طورناه وطلعناه للجمهور حتى إنه يقدر إنه يستفيد منه. وزي ما حكيت القراءات القصصية كمان كانت للأطفال من بيوتهم، كنا نقدر إنه نقدم لهم إياها هاي القصص. كمان عملنا تدريبات أونلاين، وعملنا محاضرات أونلاين، وعملنا جلسات تثقيفية، كلها كانت أونلاين. ما رح أحكي إنه الموضوع كان سهل، لكن لأنها كانت تجربة جديدة علينا، فكتير في اشياء تعلمناها خلال هاي الجائحه. ويمكن يعني هذا الاشي الايجابي انه تعلمنا انه نروح لكتير اشياء اونلاين حتى انه نقدر نوصل لناس اكثر. حتى على خلال منصات التواصل الاجتماعي صرنا كثير نحط عن كتاب اليوم، شو هن الكتب، والناس بتقدر كمان تدخل على المنصات الإلكترونية حتى تعرف إيش هو الكتاب اللي عمالنا بنحكي عنه، بيقدروا يشتركوا وينزلوا هدول الكتب. صرنا نعمل فيديوهات عن الرواد لما كانوا يكونوا عنا، إنه إحنا قديش اشتقنا لهم، أو إذا هن كانوا حاطين أي بوست عن المكتبة كنا نشيرها حتى نضلنا بتواصل مع روادنا. كتير عملنا فيديوهات خاصة فينا عن شغلنا حتى إنه الناس تقدر تشوف إحنا شو عمالنا بنعمل أو كيف كنا نعمله، وحولنا الأشياء اللي كنا بنعملها يعني ما كناش نفكر إنه ناس ممكن تنساها، بس عملناها كفيديوهات. كتير كنا نستعمل يعني نعمل منشور فيه أسئلة عشان ونطلب من الناس الإجابات عليها، حتى كمان نخلي التواصل بيننا وبين الجمهور، لأنه مو عارفين إمتى كان ممكن إنه نرجع على مواقعنا. كان في كمان ضلينا يعني عنا إشي اسمه أكثر الرواد استعارة، ضلينا نحط منشورات عن الناس اللي بتقرأ عدد كبير حتى إنه نشجع ناس تانيين كمان إنهم يقدروا إنهم يكونوا موجودين معنا. وعملنا كتير حملات مكثفة لترويج خدمات المكتبة الإلكترونية وخدماتنا الأونلاين، حتى الناس تكون عارفة إنه إحنا مزبوط مش موجودين بالموقع، ولكن إحنا موجودين أونلاين بكافة خدماتنا. حتى في رواد كنا نتصل فيهم نطمن عليهم. كتير كان في عنا تواصل مع الأطفال والأهالي حتى إنه نقدر نوصل لهم. وفي عنا إحنا يعني حتى على السوشيال ميديا على الفيسبوك للأطفال خصوصا كنا إنه نتواصل معهم. الخدمات اللي هن محتاجينها نقدم لهم إياها، كنا نطلب منهم فيديوهات هن يعملوها. وكتير من القراءات القصصية كانت تكون على هاي المجموعة المغلقة عشان تحدي إنه إحنا مش كل الناشرين بيوافقوا إنه إحنا نقرأ القصص أونلاين، إذا كانت مفتوحة أو مسجلة فبتكون بس بمجموعات خاصة. وأنشأنا محتوى متعلق بالتدابير الصحة والسلامة الخاصة بكوفيد، فكنا نبعث لهم يتباعدوا عن بعض، يستعملوا برامج اللي كانت الحكومة تقدمها إلى آخره. بس نظرة هيك على رسائل اللي كانت توصلنا من روادنا، هي مش بس كنا نشيرها عشان الناس تكون معنا، ولكن هاي كانت إحنا تعطينا دفعة وتشجعنا إنه نشتغل أكتر لإلهم. يعني لما حدا بيحكي لك افتحوا مش قادر إني أتنفس، أو اشتقنا لأجواء المكتبة والقراءة فيها، من أروع الأماكن إن شاء الله نرجع لها. اشتقت للمكتبة كتير، مش متعودة إنه أسبوع يمر من دون ما أروح عليها. بدي أرجع وأشم الكتب، أحكي مع الموظفين كتير، أسلم على كل حدا عماله بيقرأ بشغف. يعني هاي الجمل اللي كانت حقيقة بتخلينا نحس إنه إحنا يعني زي كأنهم عم بشكرونا وبدهم إيانا نرجع، وهاي كانت تعطينا دفعة للشغل أكتر ولنقدر نفيد ناس أكتر. يعني هاي الصورة أظن معبرة كتير، لما حدا من باب سياته واقف صافف قدام المكتبة وعماله بيقول إنه أرجوكم افتحوا، مش قادر إني أتنفس. أظن هاي بتلخص كل دور المكتبات وأهمية المكتبات. بالنسبة للحكومة كانت المكتبات مش أولوية. سمحت الحكومة لإعادة القطاعات، يعني إنها تفتح، كانت الأهم القطاعات الاقتصادية. إحنا مؤسسة ما بتدر دخل على الحكومة، فكان بالنسبة لهم إنه هذا الموضوع أو المكتبات مش مصدر مهم من ناحية الدخل اللي بتجيبه. فالمدارس والمكتبات والمراكز التعليمية والثقافية كانت ضلت مغلقة، بس فتحت قطاعات اقتصادية. بس إحنا ما ضلينا مكتوفين الأيدي، ضغطنا، عملنا حملة كاملة، ضغطنا على الحكومة لتفهم أهمية المكتبات، عملنا حشد تأييد على كافة وسائل الإعلام لإعادة فتح المكتبات، أثرنا بالرأي العام للمطالبة بأنه المكتبات تفتح، وحتى جهزنا حالنا، عملنا دليل أو بروتوكول لإعادة فتح المكتبة وعرضناه على الحكومة حتى إنها تشوف إنه إحنا جاهزين بأنه نفتح، كل إجراءاتنا جاهزة وكاملة. وبعد ما عملنا كل هاي الاشياء سمحت لنا الحكومه انه احنا كمكتبه عبد الحميد شومان انه نفتح، فطلع بمنشور خاص او قرار انه مؤسسه عبد الحميد شومان ممكن انها تفتح. واظن هاي كانت يعني دفعه مهمه بالنسبه لنا كمان كتير. احنا بس رجعنا، طبعا كل الفريق فحصناه من اذا اي حدا عنده كورونا، عملنا لجنة طوارئ حتى إنه أي إجراءات أو أي قرارات من الحكومة بتطلع، هاي اللجنة بتأخذ القرارات على السريع عشان ما بستنى إنه نرجع القرار لسلطات العليا أو الإدارة. إذا في أي شخص أو أي يعني زائر للمكتبة بيحتاج أي معلومة أو في أي تحدي صحي، إنه كنا نقدر ناخذ هالقرارات بسرعة. المكتبة طبقنا فيها كل تدابير الصحة والسلامة بين كل مكتب ومكتب، أو وين بيقعدوا حطينا قواطع زجاجية بين مقاعد الجلوس، عقمنا الكتب والمصادر كليتها الموجودة عندنا، وفرنا المعقمات والكمامات والقفازات، وفرضنا جميع الإجراءات الحكومية أو اللي طلبتها الحكومة عند استقبال الرواد. أول إشي فتحنا إحنا تدريجي، فتحنا بأنه يقدروا يستعيروا الكتب، بعدين لما كنا جاهزين بلشنا إنه نستقبل الناس. طبعا يعني عملنا تباعد بين المقاعد حتى إنه نقدر نستقبل الأشخاص. وطبعا كل شيء أونلاين ضل، يعني ما وقفنا الأونلاين، كان هذا بالإضافة للأونلاين كملنا إنه نقدر إنه نستقبل. هلأ طبعا أكيد العدد قل قديش إحنا بنقدر نستقبل أشخاص لأنه حاجتنا للتباعد الاجتماعي، ولكن يعني هذا كمان ساعد الناس اللي محتاجة إنها تكون بداخل المكتبة. في برامج اللي كنا نقدمها، التدريبات كمان عملناها هجينة أو هايبريد، يعني في ناس بتقدر إنها تكون موجودة عنا، بس بشرط إنه الأشخاص اللي موجودين في قاعة ما يزيدوا عن 20، وهذا هو العدد المسموح فيه من الحكومة. بالإضافة لنفس التدريب عماله بيكون أونلاين، وهذا كان بنقدر إنه نوصل لأكبر عدد، واللي بحب إنه يكون موجود كان بيقدر يكون موجود، واللي بحب إنه يحضروا أونلاين كان بيقدر يكون موجود أونلاين. رجعنا نستضيف أندية القراءة، وهذا برنامج دائما كان عنا، طبعا مع التقيد بكافة تدابير الصحة والسلامة، وكملت أنشطتنا كاملة. زي ما حكيت قعدنا تأهيل المساحات كليتها، حتى جبنا أجهزة لتعقيم الكتب، فأي كتاب بيكون موجود بيتم استخدامه من أي شخص عند إعادته بيتم تعقيم الكتب حتى نضمن الصحة والسلامة. حتى مع الأطفال كله لازم يكون لابس كمامات والتباعد زي ما أنتم شايفين. القراءات القصصية اللي كانت كنا نسمح إنه الأطفال يكونوا موجودين، بس زي ما حكيت بعدد قليل. وطبعا في أونلاين كتير صرنا نعمل دورات للأهالي عبر الإنترنت، وخصوصا بهاي الجائحة كتير في ناس كانت حابة تعرف كيف بنتعامل مع فيروس الكورونا، شو أثر إغلاق هاي المراكز تبعت الأطفال والمخيمات الصيفية على الأطفال. يعني الأهل بيحبوا إنهم يعرفوا كانوا مثل هاي المعلومات، كيف في أنشطة للأهل إنهم يستفيدوا منها داخل بيوتهم وخلال الحجر، إنه شو الأنشطة اللي بتشجع الأطفال على القراءة. إذا في الأطفال عندهم أسئلة خاصة بالكورونا وبيسألوا أهليهم مو عارفين يجاوبوهم، كنا نعمل مثل هاي الورشات وحتى نساعد الأهل كيف يختاروا لأطفالهم الكتب. حتى عملنا المخيم الصيفي والمخيم الشتوي والمخيم العلمي، كله كنا عمالنا بنعمله أونلاين وأوفلاين، كله كان هجين. كتب يعني نستضيف كتاب كمان كنا نعملها أونلاين وأوفلاين، نناقش مع روائيين، مع كتاب شعر، عملنا توقيع كتب، قراءات قصصية. يعني ما ضل عنا ولا برنامج إلا وكان موجود عنا وما توقف. طبعا مع تقليل عدد الحضور، حتى الموسيقى بالمكتبة كمان كانت هاي موجودة عنا أونلاين وأوفلاين. فهذا بيأكد لنا إنه إحنا قديش بأي جائحة لازم نكون مرنين ونتكيف مع هاي الجائحة. ضلينا نستجيب لأي تحديثات، يعني دايما مهتمين إنه شو في تحديثات للكوفيد 19، إيش في بؤر ساخنة في الأردن. يعني إذا في موقع صعب نكون فيه أو مكتبتنا موجودة في موقع عم بيصير فيه أعداد كبيرة من الكورونا، أو بيوم معين عم بيصير فيه عدد كتير كبير، كنا نحول أونلاين ونوقف الأوفلاين. فهاي طول الوقت إحنا كنا جاهزين فيها. قررنا إنه حتى لو رجعنا فتحنا المكتبة ورجعت الحياة زي ما كانت قبل، رح نضل برامجنا رح تضلها هايبريد أو هجينة، من تدريبات وورشات ومحاضرات وأندية قراءة وقصص، قراءات قصصية إلى آخره. ضروري نأكد على إنه استمرارية وصول الكتب والمراجع للرواد والأعضاء، إنه يعني أي حدا بيحتاج أي إشي، إذا هو مش قادر يوصل عنا أو هي مش قادرة توصل عنا، إحنا بنوصل لإلهم، مش بس بالأونلاين بس كمان عملنا خدمة التوصيل. وقعنا اتفاقيات مع بعض الناشرين واستضفنا مؤلفين، لأنه ما كانوا بيسمحوا لنا إنه إحنا نقرأ قصص أونلاين خوفا من يعني حقوق النشر. فكان توقيع هاي الاتفاقيات مهمة، أو استضافة المؤلفين والكتاب كمان، هاي حمتنا من حمت حقوق الملكية الفكرية. اشتغلنا مع بعض القنوات التلفزيونية حتى يبثوا لنا أنشطتنا على منصاتهم الإلكترونية. زدنا وما زلنا كل يوم بنزيد المصادر الإلكترونية والخدمات عبر الإنترنت. استضفنا دوي اختصاص عشان يحكوا عن مواضيع لها دخل بالكورونا وبالصحة، بالاقتصاد الأردني، بالتعليم عن بعد، واللي هو هذه يعني جزء كتير مهم. وإحنا يعني الأهل كتير متغلبين والأطفال في موضوع الدراسة عن بعد أو التعليم عن بعد. عملنا مسابقات عبر الإنترنت لتشجيع القراءة، وكمان لأنه إحنا مؤسسة مش بس مكتبة وفي عنا بحث علمي، قدمنا تمويل لأبحاث خصوصية أو ابتكارات خصوصية في مواضيع الكورونا. دايما عندنا سؤال: هل المكتبة رح تضل مهمة وإلها صلة بالواقع بوجود الكورونا؟ وإحنا ما بنعرف الكورونا رح تضل ما رح تضل، رح نقدر نرجع زي ما كنا قبل ولا لا. إحنا يعني من نقاشاتنا كنا متأكدين إنه دايما المكتبة هي مقصد موثوق ومتاح مجانا لكافة مصادر المعرفة. يعني المكتبة دايما رح تضل لأنه هي يعني المقصد الموثوق. أي حدا بيقدر إنه يوصل لمكتبيين خبراء، أي سؤال بدهم إياه عن كتب أو عن أي مرجع أو عن أي موضوع، المكتبيين خبراء بإنهم يقدموا لهم هاي الخدمة. المكتبات وجودها بتزيد التواصل الاجتماعي والإنساني والترابط بين الأشخاص، فهي كتير مهمة إنها تضل موجودة. محل أو هي بوتقة للأنشطة والورشات التدريبية الموصولة بالواقع. يعني احنا عندنا عدد من الاشخاص اللي عمالهم بيفقدوا وظائفهم، او طلاب عمالهم بتخرجوا هلا محتاجين يتعرفوا كيف يعملوا السي في تبعتهم، محتاجون يتعلموا مثلا لغات، او محتاجين يتعلموا كيف بيعملوا مقابلات. فهي مكتبتنا بتقدم هاي الورشات اللي بيحتاجوها طبعا، وكل هاي الورشات بيتم يعني نقاش مع الأشخاص حتى إنه نعرف إيش الحاجة اللي هن أو التدريبات اللي هن محتاجينها، ومنقدم لهم مثل هاي التدريبات والأنشطة. طبعا بتوفر المكتبات الإنترنت، بتوفر أجهزة إلكترونية هاي مش متوفرة عند كل الأشخاص. كمان بتتيح إنه يتواصلوا مع خبراء ومتخصصين في مواضيع ذات أهمية أو في أوقات الطوارئ مثل هلأ مثل كورونا. فكتير من الأشخاص اللي يعني إحنا عملنا كتير محاضرات على مواضيع زي ما حكيت إلها دخل بالكورونا، إن كانت الصحة، التعليم، الاقتصاد، يعني المجتمع كان بيقدر إنه يستشير ويسأل أهل الاختصاص بالمواضيع اللي بتهمهم. وطبعا هي بتحافظ على العافية الذهنية للأفراد من خلال دائما مشاركتهم بالأنشطة والفعاليات الثقافية. احنا بنآمن انه طول ما في مكتبة عامة موجودة وموجودة حواليك، انت ما عمرك رح تكون لحالك. احنا متأكدين انه المكتبة لازم تضلها موجودة، واحنا يعني احنا كمؤسسة التزمنا انه احنا ما رح نوقف مكتباتنا، ما رح بس نفكر انه كيف نروح اونلاين. بالعكس، عمالنا منجدد ومنحدث مكتبتنا، عمالنا يعني عم نكبر المكتبة اللي موجودة بالفرع الثاني تبعنا، عمالنا منوفر أنشطة جديدة بالمكتبة مثل شطرنج، مثل ورشات رسم، مثل ورشات تصوير، لغة الإشارة، إسعافات أولية وغيرها. عم نقدم برامج بتشجع على الابتكار، لأنه إحنا بهذا الوقت اللي فيه تحديات لازم نصير نفكر في الابتكار. مثل فصرنا ندرب على ال 3D printing، التفكير الناقد الإبداعي، لوحات التحكم الدقيقة، الروبوتات، صناعة الجهاز الطيف الضوئي، التصميم الإبداعي وغيرها. وهلأ عمالنا بننشئ فرعين جداد للمكتبة في مواقع مختلفة. وشكرا، وأنا جاهزة لكل هاي للأسئلتكم.
شكرا جزيلا فالنتينا. معنا الآن سيدة فالنتينا، ومعنا الآن سيد جونز للأسئلة والمداخلات. تون اضطر للمغادرة، فاحنا شكرناه وكنا نتمنى يضل معنا فترة أطول، لكن عنده ظرف قاهر. في سؤال موجه للسيد جون. سيد جون، هل ممكن قراءة قصص الأطفال من خلال البث بدون أخذ موافقة الناشر؟
Yes, we are able to do that. There are some limitations through some of the social media channels that we use, but because it's for educational purposes, we are able to provide those story times.
سؤال برضو للسيد جون، هل استمريتم بشراء الكتب الورقية خلال الفترة الماضية؟
Yes, that's a great question. We transitioned a significant amount of our collections funding to e-content, e-books, downloadable audio, films, various formats at the beginning of the pandemic. We continued buying those things that were necessary to make certain we had on the shelves even when we reopened. But then over the summer months, June, July, we began purchasing more physical items because we had opened the 26 libraries and are providing access to physical collections. So the demand for our physical collections is significant, and it's important that we meet that demand. And so we are buying physical materials now.
السؤال لفالنتينا، ما الدروس المستفادة بعد مرور ما يقرب 7 شهور على بدء الجائحة؟
من الدروس المستفادة إنه تكون المكتبة جاهزة طول الوقت. الدروس المستفادة إنه ما نوقف الأنشطة الأونلاين، ما نوقف بتوفير الكتب المسموعة والكتب الإلكترونية. نوفر خدماتنا إلكترونياً بنفس الوقت اللي إحنا عمالنا بنقدمها يعني وجاهياً، لحتى نقدر نخدم أكبر عدد ممكن. وفي أشخاص يعني إحنا عم بيجينا حتى اتصالات من خارج الأردن وناس عم تستعمل خدماتنا من خارج الأردن، وهذا ورجانا إنه إحنا لازم نكمل بالهجين. في برامج دايما لازم نضلنا نفكر بماذا لو، يعني وات اف، إذا صار هيك إيش نكون نعمل. دايما لازم يكون في عنا خطة للطوارئ أو حتى لجنة للطوارئ. الدروس المستفادة إنه نجرب حتى لو غلطنا، معلش، لو في إشي ما زبط معلش، منضلنا نجرب، وكل يوم منضلنا نطلع بأي فكرة ونجربها، لأنه إذا ما جربنا ما رح نعرف إذا هذا الإشي ممكن إنه يزبط ولا لا. ما نقول على أي موضوع ما رح يزبط أو ما بنعرف إذا ما جربنا. مهم كتير نضلنا نسأل مع خلينا نحكي رواد المكتبة، وحتى الأشخاص اللي حتى ما بيجوا عنا على المكتبة، نضلنا نسألهم شو الخدمات اللي إنهم بيحتاجوها. وخصوصا وقت الحظر كتير الناس اللي قعدت ببيوتها، زي ما الكل عماله بيحكي إنه أثر كتير على نفسياتهم. حتى إحنا كان عم بيأثر على نفسياتنا إحنا كموظفين في هاي المؤسسة. فكيف نتوقع من الأشخاص التانيين؟ أكيد بدنا نتوقع إنه عم بيصير عندهم نفس الموضوع حتى. فضروري نضلنا على تواصل مع روادنا وناخذ كل الأسئلة ونسمح بأي سؤال لو يعني، وإذا إحنا ما بنعرفه نقدر إنه نجيب خبراء إنهم يساعدوهم. شكرا.
هذا السؤال موجه لحضراتكم الاثنين. الآن الجميع بصدد إعداد الموازنة. هل اتخذتم قراراتكم بناء على استمرار الجائحة أم بتوقع إعادة الأمور لما كانت عليه؟ سيد جون، تفضل.
Also an outstanding question. We actually have just completed our budget for next year, and it was very challenging because there are still many unknowns. And so we wanted to make certain that we had the dollars in place for those things that are essential for the pandemic, for protective equipment and additional cleaning and sanitizing of facilities. And also putting additional resources into our budget for e-resources. There are many people that have discovered the library's electronic resources who did not use them before. And so we have many new users, and the demand has grown, and meeting that demand gets more and more challenging over time. So we did take that into account as well. But there's still many unknowns. And I think one of the challenges we're anticipating is that all of the wonderful virtual services that we're providing right now, and the new service of pick up physical materials in a bag outside of the library, people love that. People are used to that. And the challenge will be, how do we provide all of those wonderful in-library services, but also meet their desire and demand for the virtual services that are new and the curbside services that are new. I think that will be challenging from a staffing perspective, but clearly we want to serve people in the best way that we can.
سيدة فالنتينا.
أكيد الموازنات اللي رح تنعمل أو عملها بتنعمل بدها تأخذ بعين الاعتبار إنه الجائحة ممكن تضل موجودة، بس بنفس الوقت ما تقلل الموازنة، وإنما تخليها على موازنة إنه لو ما في جائحة. لأنه خلال وجودنا الكامل في المكتبة طبعا تكلفتها أعلى من البرامج خلينا نقول اللي بتكون أونلاين. لازم يكون زي ما حكيت برامجنا عم تكون هجينة، فلازم يكون كل شيء متوفر، حتى البرامج الجديدة اللي صرنا نعملها وما كنا نعملها من قبل تضل إنها تنعمل. فبدنا نفكر بوجود الجائحة، ويعني من ناحية التعقيم، من ناحية الصحة، تدابير الصحة والسلامة، بالإضافة للبرامج اللي تضلها هجينة، إنه إحنا ما نوقفها نهائياً. فأكيد الموازنات بدها تكبر، وزي ما أنا حكيت إحنا عمالنا منكبر لأنه الناس حست بأهمية المكتبات أكتر. وزي ما حكى جون إنه الناس صارت تتعرف على الكتب الإلكترونية أو المصادر الإلكترونية أكتر، فأكيد بدنا نزيد هاي الكتب أو هاي المصادر الإلكترونية. شكرا.
هذا بيقود لسؤال تاني قريب، هو هل تتوقعوا ترجع المكتبات مثل ما كانت؟ هل ستعود المكتبات لما كانت عليه؟ سي جون.
That's the question that everyone asks, and the question that we all want to know the answer to. Right now, here in Los Angeles, our health numbers, case numbers around COVID are not good. And so we certainly don't anticipate moving to that next phase of reopening, certainly earlier than the first of the year, and it very well could be beyond that. It still is an unknown. We were moving in a good direction for a while, and right now it's not a good direction. But we are having conversations just internally about when we are able to move forward a little bit beyond the library to go services that we're providing at the 26 libraries, what small steps we might take that might involve patrons being able to come into our facilities. Might it be at a limited number of locations? How we might do that rather than just immediately overnight opening all of our libraries with limited capacity. I think we want to take small steps and see what works, experiment, learn from that, and then move forward. But I'm certainly hopeful that we're able to do that sooner, because there are certain things that we're simply unable to do with these restrictions. There are certain services and certain things that happen in our physical locations that, despite all the creativity, we're not able to do. And so we're eager to serve residents of the city and want to be able to do that as soon as possible, but safely.
نحن في مؤسسة شومان لم نحرم من ذلك. المؤسسة فاتحة ومنقدم خدمات زي ما حكت فالنتينا، بنقدمها بطريقة هايبريد، ففيزيكلي موجودين وأونلاين موجودين. السؤال لفالنتينا: عند اتخاذك للقرارات الصعبة بخصوص الفتح أو الإغلاق ومدى تقليص وتحديد الخدمات، ما الفرق بين المجازفة والجرأة والإقدام في اتخاذ القرار؟
سؤال كتير مهم. احنا كنا ماخدين كل التدابير الصحية والتدابير السلامة. هي ما كانت جرأة، لو انه ما كنا ماخدين كل هاي التدابير بتكون جرأة من دون تفكير، ولكن احنا لانه كنا عاملين خطة كاملة ومدربين، وحتى موظفينا زي ما حكيت اول ما رجعنا دوامنا كنا فحصنا كل الموظفين لنضمن السلامة، وفي عنا لجنة طوارئ، فإحنا كنا جاهزين لأي طارئ لا سمح الله. فهي كانت بتفكير معمق ومنتبهين، يعني أهم شيء عنا هي صحة وسلامة الموظفين والرواد. فهي كان بتفكير كتير عميق حتى نقدر ناخذ هذا القرار، وما زلنا ناخذ كل التدابير، وما زلنا يعني أي شخص بدخل عنا أكيد بنفحصه، بنتأكد إنهم دايما لابسين كمامات، في عنا تباعد، عنا تعقيم يومي للمكتبة وللمساحات اللي موجودة عنا. أي فعالية بنعملها ما عم بيكون عنا أكثر من 20 شخص، مع إنه المساحة بتسمح لهذا، بس هذا قرار الحكومة إنه ما أي فعالية ما يكون فيها 20 شخص. فما كان بقرار متسرع، وإنما إحنا أخذنا هذا القرار بعد دراسة مطولة وتجهيزات كاملة. شكرا.
تقوى بتسأل: هل قللت الجائحة، سيد جون السؤال، هل قللت الجائحة الدور البشري في عمل المكتبات، كون الموارد وكذلك الخدمات كلها عندكم أصبحت إلكترونية وبخدمة ذاتية؟
what is? Could you repeat the question? Sorry. I don't think so. I have seen our staff step up and be creative and nimble, adaptable, resilient, and are finding new and creative ways to serve the public. That said, there are ways in which our staff serve the public in our physical locations that just can't be replicated online. But I don't think that's a diminishment of their service. I think that there are many in our community, many vulnerable populations in our community, older adults who live at home, people who are without homes, who come into our library for the social interaction with our staff. And while some of that might be able to happen in a virtual environment, that's not able to happen in the meaningful way that it does normally. Also, a place for young people to come after school, a safe place for children and teenagers to come and to learn and to engage with others that's safe in their community. I think that's something that we're not able to provide. But I know that our staff are restless. They are eager to be reopened, but they are every day finding new ways to connect with our users. But one of the barriers is digital equity and the fact that everyone doesn't have the same level of digital access. And that's something we worry about, that we are taking some steps toward addressing right now. But we look forward to more significant improvements going forward. But that's something that the pandemic has shown a big light on.
سؤال لفالنتينا من جمان القيمري. بتشكر المؤسسة وتسأل بخصوص الفروع الجديدة تحت الإنشاء في أي مناطق تقع؟
حاليا في الزرقاء وفي المقابلين، وإن شاء الله سنويا رح نفتح فروع الجديدة إن شاء الله لنغطي كافة المملكة. شكرا.
في سؤال لسيد جون. ضحى بتسأل هل أنتم منفتحين أو مستعدين لمشاركة أشخاص مكتبيين من غير الستاف تبعكم، من غير الفريق العمل، اللي مثلا الستوري تيلينج، قراءة قصص الأطفال؟ هل ممكن لشخص من بلد خارج منطقتكم مشاركة بعمل فعاليات من هذا النوع؟
Yes, we have a significant number of volunteers that support the Los Angeles Public Library in our branches that we ask to support us in that regard. And we also ask local leaders, well-known people, celebrities, and others to participate. And I think as we go forward, we'll do more of that. It's very limited right now, primarily with our staff who serve young children, but absolutely, I think there are opportunities for that. And you know, the talent and skill to read stories to children is a very special one that certainly our children's librarians have. And one of the things that we do with our volunteers is provide some training on doing that, even when we're open in person.
اقترب الوقت على الانتهاء. محاضرينا سيد جون وسيدة فالنتينا، إذا كان لديكم شيء بتحبوا تشاركوا أو تقولوه في النهاية. فالنتينا.
أنا بحب أشكر كل اللي موجودين معنا اليوم أونلاين وأوفلاين، لأنه في عنا جمهور موجود كمان عنا إحنا هون. بحب أشكر كلكم. بحب أشكر كمان توم وجون على مشاركتهم معنا، لأنه الخبرات العالمية بتهمنا كتير وبتساعدنا إنه كمان إحنا كيف نطور ببرامجنا، نتعلم. يعني مشاركة الخبرات مهمة كتير حتى إنه نطورها. فشكرا لكم على مشاركتكم خبراتكم. طبعا إحنا عنا لسه كمان بكرة أو غدا في عنا برنامج كامل، أكيد زميلتي أفنان رح تعرفنا عليه. بس أي حدا عنده أي أسئلة إحنا كمان جاهزين حتى بعد هاي الندوة. و يعني جاهزين لأي استفسار ولا بنحب نشوفكم أكتر كمان في المكتبات. أنا يعني كنت حابة أسأل جون إنه ليش لهلأ ما عم بيقدروا يفتحوا المكتبات؟ هل هو قرار من الحكومة ولا هل هو كان قرار منهم إنه ما يفتحوا المكتبات؟ لأنه المواقع المختلفة التانية بأمريكا فاتحة، يعني في مدارس فاتحة، في سوبر ماركت فاتح. شو بتختلف المكتبة عن مواقع أخرى إنها تكون فاتحة؟ شكرا للجميع.
Yes, and I just want to say thank you as well, and just being a part of this conversation, listening to the excellent questions, listening to Ton and Valentina as well. I'm reminded again of the wonderful nature of libraries and people who work in libraries, the services that we are able to provide. And I think whether it's a small library, a large library in Jordan, in the United States, or anywhere around the world, it is mighty, mighty important work. And that's something for us all to remember. And I think as we come out of this pandemic, there will be big issues in our communities and our nations that libraries can help with. And I think we need to be ready to step up and to serve in that capacity. And I love the earlier quote. I think Valentina mentioned it. As long as there is a public library, you will never be alone. And I think that's just a beautiful message for us all to remember and to be proud of when we think about the institutions where we work. Thank you so much. Yes, and every institution, museums, cultural institutions are mostly and primarily closed. There are some libraries in Southern California that do have limited capacity. Right now, there is a big conversation about outdoor dining in restaurants. We've erred on the side of caution, working with our local leaders. We're listening to public health officials, providing some services directly to the public, but just being particularly cautious when it comes to in-person services within our libraries. And that's consistent with almost all other local libraries and cultural institutions within the local area. But again, we're talking about what it might look like as we are able to reopen. But we're following the guidance of health officials.
غدا لدينا إن شاء الله راح يكون ندوة مكتبة الأطفال واليافعين. سيكون لدينا 3 خبراء سيتحدثون عن تجربة مكتبات الأطفال أيضا أثناء جائحة كورونا. في النهاية نشكر شكر جزيل السيد تون غادرنا وسيد جون وسيدة فالنتينا على هذه المعلومات الثرية. كل الشكر لوقتكم وحضوركم ومداخلاتكم. نتمنى أن تكون الندوة مثمرة ومفيدة، وعلى أمل اللقاء بكم في العام القادم. نستودعكم الله والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. شكرا جزيلا.